Hi guys, today I'm going to go over Talisman, the Magical Quest. This is the next big game that we're going to play. This is the 4th edition made by Fantasy Flight. For a long time, Gabe has been wanting to play this game with me. I kind of put it off for, I'm not really too sure whatever reason, but I got together with Andrea one day and we played it and we both really fell in love with it. It's always great to find a game that she enjoys too, because it helps when I go out and buy all the expansions to the game. There's 12 of them. And that's one of the ways I was able to get it, because she really likes the game too. On Sunday we're going to be playing with all the expansions, so this video is to go over the rules really, well, I'm not going to say quickly because it's kind of lengthy, but a really good overview of it. I'm not going to go into super detail, but this way everyone has a fighting chance on Sunday without taking a very long time when we get together. So the main purpose of the Talisman, it started centuries ago. There's this wizard. He ruled the land through the use of this magical talisman. This Crown of Command. And he knew he was going to pass, so he took the Crown of Command and put it like in the middle of the land, guarded by all these creatures and traps. So it's up to one of the adventurers to go in, get that crown, and then they become rulers of the land. So that's what we're going to be fighting for on Sunday when we all get together. It's kind of like a backstabbing type game, and we should really just have fun with it, and that's kind of the point. So the main point is to go around the land, go around the board. There's a lot of different expansions, like I said, where you can level up, get items. The main purpose is get to the middle of the board, and I'll show you that in a little bit. We want to get to the Crown of Command. Now, we're playing a random scenario. So there's like, I think 15 or 20 different endings, and it's going to be secret. So whoever steps foot into that center place, we're going to flip the card over and we're going to find out what happens. And I'll show you more about that. You lose when you run out of health. You're out of the game. There's going to be no respawns in this version. So you could be out the very first turn, or you could be here all day and hopefully you're the winner. Thanks, guys. The first thing I want to take a look at are the different characters in Talisman and take a look at their character sheets. There's over 60 characters in Talisman that I currently have, so we will randomly select 3 of them, and you will have your option of picking one. Our leader of the tournament will have his selection of 5 to choose from. So let's just take a quick look here. The name of your character, we got this warrior here. His strength is on the left-hand side. This is how you do battles, and I'll get into that, but basically you roll a d6, you add your total strength to it, and that's your combat value. Craft is basically your magic value. Whenever you are able to cast a spell, maybe in combat, you use your craft. You start getting spells in the game once you get 3 craft. When you have 3 craft, you're allowed to have 1 spell. 4 or 5 craft, you can have 2. And 6 or more craft, you're allowed to carry 3 spells, and that's the most. Whenever you cast the spell, they're basically a one-time cast. You discard it. It says right on the spell when you're allowed to cast a spell. You don't start the game with any, and every time you cast one, you do not automatically get one back. You have to go around the board, find new areas to get spells, or maybe your character allows you to replenish your spell list. Objects go at the bottom of your character here. Basically armor, weapons, and whatnot. It says objects right on the card. You have a carrying limit of 4 objects to start, unless you buy a mule later on and you're allowed to carry more. Followers you'll find throughout the game, basically just NPCs that will follow you throughout the game to help you in combat. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Every character has a special ability, which will be listed on the card. Let's take a look here. Your starting location, so the warrior here starts at the tavern. That's basically just the space that he starts on the board. And his alignment is neutral. There's neutral, good, and evil. Certain items and encounters depends on your alignment. Pretty simple. Your gold stockpile, you start the game with 1 gold. And then your life points. So he has 5 life. Once he goes down to 0 and he's dead, you're going to be out of the game. There's going to be no respawns in the version that we play. Now, if you ever level up, say you gain your strength, we keep track of these, your strength, your craft, and your life by these little cones here. They're pretty neat. They can stack on top of each other like this to keep track. And then we have large cones for 5 value. So green is life, red is strength, and then blue is going to be your craft. And the last thing that's pretty important on here is this fate number. Okay, you get one of these tokens to start the game. Some people have low fate, some people have really high fate, and basically what that means is you're allowed to re-roll the die. Now you might not think that's pretty important. When you move, you roll a die, you move that number of spaces. But there's certain encounters where it might come across where you roll a die, and if you roll a 1, you're dead. So you're going to want to be able to re-roll the dice. And there's 2 versions of fate. There's the light version and the dark version. So when you get your fate, you select what side you want to select, and you can't change it. But once you roll a die, you can spend a light token to re-roll a die that you just cast, and I believe it's whenever you move, during a battle, or when you encounter a card, you can re-roll one of your own die, or the opposite happens with the dark side. So say someone else rolled the die and I wanted them to re-roll it. I could cast this, and I force them to re-roll their die. You can only ever re-roll a die once. This is an overview of the main board in Talisman. We'll take a quick look at it, and then I'll go into it a little bit further later. But you'll notice that there's 3 main regions. There's this outer region, followed by the middle, and then the inner region. And right here, the centerpiece, that's where you need to go, the Crown of Command. That's what we're aiming for. So most of our characters start on the outer region, and on your turn, you roll the die. On whatever the value is, you have to move the full number either left or right of your character. And once you start moving in a direction, you have to continue going in that direction. A lot of spaces on the board, they basically say draw a certain number of cards when you land there, and that's really where the meat and bones comes into. A lot of spaces on the board basically just say draw X number of cards. This one is just draw 1 card. And when you land there, that's exactly what you do. We're going to have this huge stack of these adventure cards, and that's when you draw from. Let's just say this said draw 2 cards, because then I can show you a little bit of what happens when you draw these cards. Here's an example of a few of them. Okay. The first thing you want to take note of is this number in the bottom right-hand corner. The lower number is the ones that you have to interact first with. So we have this Cultist of Flame. He's a 2, so you have to basically do battle with him before you get this weapon. How battle works is you take a look. He is an enemy cultist with strength 2. And then there's probably some special ability here at the bottom, but let's just take an instance of the strength 2. What you're going to do is you're going to roll the d6 die. You add your strength value to that. So let's just say you roll a 1. You have 4 strength, so now you have a battle of 5, and then the person to the right of you does the same thing for the cultist. They have a strength 2, they roll a d6, and you add the total value together. If it is a tie, it's a standoff, and nothing happens. If you beat the value of the monster, then you claim him as a trophy. And how trophies works is the actual value of the card. So this is a trophy. Sorry, the focus is pretty bad. This is a trophy here of strength 2. So once you have 7 or more, you can trade that in at the end of your turn. So if you have 7 strength, you can trade it in and you level up your strength by 1 point. Same thing goes into effect of craft. If this monster here had craft, then you would have to use your craft value to attack with. And once you have 7 craft, then you can trade that in to level up your craft once. And if you fail your roll, the monster beats you, you lose 1 health. And that's it, you end your turn. 2 little things or tips that I wanted to point out. Whenever you land on a space, let's just say we landed back on the space that says draw 1 card, and say you're down to 1 health and you don't want to draw a card. It could be bad, because we don't know, it's random. You have the option, before drawing a card, you can drop any objects onto that space. So now that there's 1 card already on here, you do not have to draw 1 card. So you have the option, before you draw anything, to drop stuff, so you're fine. That's just 1 tip. I'm not really too sure when it's going to go into effect if you want to do that, but that's an example. The other example is when you do fight. let's just say you have to draw 3 cards, and you pull monsters, and again, let's bring our cultist back out here. If they share the same number, so say we drew 2 different monsters and they were both 2s, well, you have to fight both those monsters at the same time. So you're going to add their strength together and roll the die just once. Okay, so if there was 2 2s, that would be 4, you roll the die, that number versus your attack value. Again, you would only lose 1 health if you lost the combat, and those monsters stay on the board. Mostly everything will stay on the board until they're either claimed or beaten. If at any time on your turn you are moved to another space, so say you're in a battle and you win and you get teleported to another area, you then interact with that space again, so your turn keeps continuing. If, for instance, you are in a battle and you lose a fight and you move to another space, your turn immediately is over. Also, if you land on a space with another hero, which is going to happen in this game, you have the option of fighting them. So instead of interacting with the space, you can fight the character. The battle is strictly goes off your strength attack first, unless you have a special ability which allows you to roll using your craft. You fight it off. In a PvP battle, if you win, you can steal 1 card from an opponent, doesn't matter what it is. You can take 1 gold from them, or you can take 1 life point away from them. If you deal the last life point to a character, they are killed, and you take all of their goods. Now, what's pretty important in this is we want to encourage PvP. So for every time you kill a character, you are going to get 1 point for the tournament, which is very, very strong. So you could just go around and kill people if you wanted to, and help yourself in that way. Also, if you are casting a spell, maybe if you deal the last life point to a character, it's going to go to your credit for killing them. Before getting into the board and showing the different spaces there, I just want to point out one other thing. And in this game, you may become a toad. Besides dying, this is probably the worst thing that could happen to you, because you drop all your goods, and you basically can't fight at all. Your strength and craft go down to 1, and you're basically useless for 3 turns. So if someone becomes a toad, other players are probably going to be coming after you. That's just a little quick side note. Most of the characters start on the outer region, and it's easier spaces. You land on space, you draw 1 card, whereas the inner region you might have to draw 2 or 3. How you get to the middle region, there's 3 ways that you can get there. You can cross this space right here. There's this sentinel, there's this big guardian. So you would roll the die. If you have enough movement to enter into the middle region, you have to fight this sentinel, and he has a strength of 9. So strength 9 plus his die roll versus whatever your strength is plus your die roll. If you beat him, you're allowed to cross into the middle region. So you're going to have to be pretty strong in order to get there. Another way is if you happen to build a raft. If you have a raft at the start of your turn, you can take it across the river, okay, because the outer region is separated by this river. I think you can build a raft either by purchasing it, or if you end your turn in a wood space and you have an axe in your hand, then you can spend a turn to build a raft, and then again next turn you can move in. The third way, and let me take the camera off here, I believe if you go up to the tavern over here in this corner, I think if you roll a certain number, you can pay somebody to ferry you across into the middle region. Okay. Now again, the middle region is a little bit stronger. Okay. A few things that I want to point out. Again, on the board, the corner spaces, just a few things like we just talked about. The tavern, some random things can happen there. There's a village down here, a blacksmith. There's like a deck of cards that we can purchase from for armor or weapons. There's a chapel in this corner where you can heal and regain some spells. And then there's a city up here where you can do a little bit more things. But once you get to the inner region, you're allowed to visit the Warlock Cave. Okay, so this is where you can really start to obtain a talisman. Now there's 4 talisman that we can get There's a few others in the adventure deck, and they're kind of random, but there's 4 talisman. That's what the game's named after. They're basically the key to get into the middle region. You need a talisman in order, I think, in order to actually get onto this space here, you have to have a talisman. So we're going to be fighting for that talisman to get in there. Once you're ready for the inner region or the middle region, this is how you cross over to the inner. You go through this portal of power, and there's different rules on how you enter in here. Basically, you have to be pretty strong to get to that point. How one enters the portal of power when they're ready, you're going to have to roll 2d6, and it has to be equal to or less than your strength or craft chosen before your roll. If it is, then you're allowed to enter into the inner region. If you fail, say you fail your craft roll, your craft goes down 1 value. So basically you have to level up before you even want to enter into here. Once you're in the inner region, movement changes. Every turn, you move 1 space. You can either go to the left, which I think if your craft is high, you want to go to the left. If your strength is high, you want to go to the right. So each turn you move 1 space, you interact with each one of these spaces, which are pretty ridiculous. And then you make your way over to this final space, the Valley of Fire, where you need to have a talisman. And then the final space is the Crown of Command. Once someone enters here, we're going to flip over one of the random scenarios and see what happens. So the way normal talisman works is once you get to the center of the board, you have to cast this command spell and basically kill everybody with a giant AoE spell. But we have all these different endings, so why don't we use them? Quickly, we'll just go through a few examples. Maybe you would have to fight a mean boss like the Dragon King. Possibly we're judged by fate, how many fate dice you have, a Demon Lord, Judgment Day. There's a whole bunch of different things, but one thing I really wanted to point out is there's even a possibility that the first person that walks in there dies to a black hole. So if you think you're going to win the game and you walk in and you pull this, you're actually dead. So again, a lot of randomness in this game, which makes it fun, so you just gotta accept it. Almost all the expansions in Talisman add new characters, new adventure cards, and new alternate endings. So we're going to be playing with all of those. That's mainly what these 2 added, and they just added a lot of cards, which is great. One thing I want to point out that these added were Warlock quests and rewards cards. So normally when you land on the Warlock Cave, if you complete one of the quests there, you can trade it in for a talisman. But now the quests are going to be random. So when you land on the space, you flip it over, you see what it does, whether it's go kill a boss, go get rid of some of your followers, whatever. Once you have that completed, you have the choice of getting a talisman if you don't have one and one's available, or you can trade it in for a reward. Okay, these are actually the quests, and this is the reward that you would get. Once you complete a quest, you instantly teleport to the Warlock's Cave, and you're granted your reward. You have your option. If you land back on the Warlock Cave after that, you can again select a new quest. One of my favorite expansions is the Reaper, and this just adds, besides again all the cards, it adds the Grim Reaper into the game. So this is an NPC character that's on the board. He's an actual figure. And whenever someone rolls a natural 1 for a movement die, after their turn, they get to roll and move the Grim Reaper. Side note, if you ever roll 2 dice, let's say you purchase a horse and you're allowed to roll 2 dice, it only counts as a 1 if you're only rolling 1 die and it's a natural. So if you roll a horse, you're never going to be able to use the Grim Reaper. But when a Grim Reaper lands on a character, they have to roll on this chart. Really, the only thing that's really important is if you roll a 1, you're dead. Nothing you can do about it. So this is one way that you can mess with other characters, and it gets pretty important because you want to stay away from the Grim Reaper. Another expansion that adds another character is the Werewolf expansion here, the Blood Moon. Okay, now a werewolf is going to be on the board, and again, when you roll a 1, you move him as well as the Grim Reaper. He's a little different because once he crosses a character, where the Grim Reaper has to land on someone's space. This is if he meets a character, he stops right there, and you have to roll on this chart. Basically, you can get bitten by the werewolf, and you become a werewolf yourself. Okay, and really the bottom line is, whenever you land on a character's space, you have to fight them. You have no option. You're bloodlusted and you want to do that. The other thing that it adds is a night and day to the game. So at nighttime, all creatures, including characters who are werewolves, get +1 to their strength at night, and during the day, they're at -1 to their strength. This switches over every time an event card is revealed, so it's just one other thing that we just need to keep track of. The Firelands Expansion, basically these are the people that created the Talisman a long time ago. They're back. They want to, I don't know, destroy the world. Basically, they can put these little fire tokens on the board, different spaces. Whenever you land on this space, you lose 1 health. They also introduce burning cards. If you're instructed to burn a card, it's removed from the game unless it has a fireproof notation on it, so that means it can't be burned. And the other thing that this expansion adds is the terrain could get changed. So a forest could get changed into a desert space or whatnot. So different spaces on the board can get changed. The Woodlands expansion is one of the first of 4 expansions that add another corner to the main board. It's pretty cool. Different areas, different regions. So if you're casting spells, this counts as a different region. How you enter this, and just like all the others, is there's going to be a space on the board here that there's an arrow pointing to. Basically, if you have enough movement from the forest, you can enter into the woodlands area. And then how you proceed through here is you go along this path. Okay. Once you enter really any of these expansion boards, you have to go in one direction. If at any point during your turn you decide, hey, I want to leave, then you must start going the other way. And you have to exit. You can't then change your mind and go back the other way. That's just how movement works. It's also true for the Grim Reaper and the werewolf. If they enter in here, they keep going down the same path until one of the people that are in control of it say, hey, I want the Grim Reaper to leave, and then they will exit out the other way. What's pretty important about the Woodlands area, it has a whole extra set, a whole new set of its own adventure cards. Okay, it then also has a path that you enter. So when you go in here, you select one of 3 available path cards. Basically, they're just special rules that you have to follow as you're in the Woodlands area. But at the bottom, it also tells you what your reward is. So maybe you can earn a talisman for doing this. But really, you gain a destiny card for going through here. And that's out of here. So if you make it all the way to this final spot, it says meeting with destiny, you basically resolve your path card and you draw a destiny card. And these can be really powerful. We've done this maybe twice, and they were pretty game-changing to get a destiny card. But it's random. Again, more random stuff in here. Next is the Highlands expansion. This is the first area, like a low-level difficulty section. So it has its own adventure deck, and you enter in through the crags up here. Again, you travel down the path. But when you get to the end, you have to fight the Eagle King. Now, the Eagle King, I believe, is a strength 8 or craft 8 you can fight him for. And if you beat him, you randomly draw one of 4 reward cards. Okay? If you do that and you win, I believe you get to travel to any space in the outer or middle region if you beat the Eagle King. And again, you can then interact with that space right away. If you lose to the Eagle King, you get kicked out to the crags, and your turn is over. So it's another little area that we can go off and adventure and gain some valuable goods. The top right corner of the board introduces the Dungeon expansion. This is kind of like a high-level area. I will warn you, it's very difficult, but there's a lot of good stuff down there. Again, it has its own adventure deck. You enter in through The runes travel it like normal, but the really important thing is the boss, and he is in the treasure chamber. Okay, he's all the way back here. There's two things with fighting him. One, he's strength 12 or craft 12, so he's stronger than the Highlands boss. But if you beat him, he's got his very own treasure deck here, and you are allowed to go in here and select any one card you want. There is a talisman in here as well. Something else that I want to point out is when you beat the boss, if you beat him, because he's really strong, depending on how much you beat him by, that's where you get teleported to. So I think, if you beat him by 1 or 2, you get teleported to the forest or the ruins. But if you beat him with an 8 or more, I believe, you get instantly teleported to the center of the board, right to the Crown of Command, without even needing a talisman, because you skip that one space. So it's one way to sneak right into the middle. You go through the dungeon, and you get in through that way. Pretty cool, but like I said, it is very difficult in there. The last corner expansion is going to be one of my favorites. I think it adds a lot to the game, is the city expansion. That goes in the top left-hand corner of the game. Basically, how you enter there is you go on the city space, and you enter it like any others. You come in through here. And movement works a little different in this area. There's an outside track that you follow. You come around here. But then on this, you can enter in one of the actual shops, and you end your turn. So say you wanted to go to the academy, and I rolled a 5. Okay, and I'm back here. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I end my turn. Okay, so just as long as you have enough movement to enter a space, you're fine, and then your turn ends. Then your next turn, you come back out, 1, 2. If you want to go to another shop, you keep going along this track to bring you right back to the main gate. Now, each one of these shops, of course, does something in particular, whether it's, receive some training. This place, you can buy potions. There's a deck of potion cards that you can get, buy spells. Here's the Magic Emporium, where there's going to be a deck of cards that you can search through and purchase. Here's like a quick reference guide, so we can all take a look at that when we get together. You can get thrown into jail, which I'm sure is never a good thing. We have a Soothsayer. I guess you could read your fortune, maybe replenish your fate back up. The Armory. So besides some of the standard weapons and armors that start the game that you can purchase on, say, like the regular city space, these have specialized items. You can buy a pet here, so different followers. There's going to be an actual stable space where you can buy mules or horses. And you keep going around till you come back out through the front. Two other things I want to point out: it has its own city deck or adventure cards when you land on these spaces out here. And also, the very first space has wanted posters. So I believe, I think maybe 2 or 3 of these are going to be face up, or you purchase it. I'll take a look at it. But it just allows you to go out on quests. And let's see what this one says. When you claim this bounty, gain gold equal to the amount of trophy points you discard from enemy dragons. So a wanted a dragon. So if you go out and you kill a dragon, whatever its strength is, then you get gold in return. You automatically get that. I will double check to see if you have to come back to the city to claim your reward. But I'll find out for sure. I think you just get it instantly. So that's just another way that you can create some money. But this adds a lot of different options for what you can do. The last expansion that adds actual pieces to the board is the Deep Realms expansion. Now this is pretty interesting because it actually connects the dungeon to the city. So if you're in a city space, and instead of going back out and walking all the way over to the dungeon, you can come up here from this space over and cross this rickety bridge here to enter the dungeon. Basically, you move into this one space, you have to stop here, you interact with it. I think you need to draw like 3 of these bridge cards to cross over. Honestly, I don't think we've ever done this, so it's a mystery. These could be really bad, probably fall to your death. Who knows? Hopefully someone experiments with that. Then on the second level, you enter in either through here or through the dungeon. There's other little mini bosses. So in the town, you can go fight the like the rat queen. Okay, she starts the game with some random objects, and if you fight and beat her, you get to claim those objects. And on the flip side, you have the throne room where there's a mini boss of the dungeon. I believe she starts with some of the other random treasures, like the really good loot. And if you beat her, then you get one of those. Her actual rules. Let's see. You must fight the Witch Lord in psychic combat. He has a craft of 4 and adds 1 for each treasure in space. So they are a little difficult. You can't do that right away. And how you get down to them, the very first room, is you have to draw 3 of these catacomb cards. So each turn you turn one of these cards over, you interact with it. Not sure if they're strong, I'm going to guess they are. The final 2 expansions I want to talk about really might not affect us that much. One is the Netherrealm expansion. This adds a deck of Netherrealm cards, and the way that we're playing it, only if we draw that random scenario at the end will we actually interact with this. And the final one is the Dragon expansion. This actually changes the center board with an overlay. Some dragons come over and they want to take over land. It's a whole different way of playing it, but it added new characters, some adventure cards, I believe, so it's part of it, but we're not playing the full thing. So I understand there's a lot going on in this game. It's pretty overwhelming when you actually see it all out on the actual table, but it's long, it's epic, it's actually a lot of fun. You got to go into it expecting some randomness. That's really what makes it fun. It's weird for me to say. I know Gabe was like, I'm pretty surprised you like it, because there's some strategy into it, but you know, you roll the die, and that's really what it comes down to. But going into that, I really enjoy this game. A lot of laughs, a lot of backstabbing, but like in a good way. You know it's going to happen, so it's fun. And through the tournament, we want to encourage that. That's why you're going to get points for actually slaying people in this game. A lot of points to the victor, so kudos to whoever actually wins the game. And like I said, there's a lot going on the board, but you can't do it all in one game. You know, so you have to decide. Are you going to stay on the main board, you know, and just walk through the outer, middle, and then the inner region, level up that way? If you want to go to the hinterlands first and fight your way through there and try and level up a little bit, kind of be off on your own, or go into the forest, you know, gain a path card, then complete your destiny and be a little bit stronger when you come out, or say you got enough gold and you want to go visit the city, go in there, maybe you fight the rat queen. Get some little treasure that way. Or if you're really strong and brave and you want to go into the dungeon. Or just want to run around and attack people. You can do whatever you want. I found it really fun trying to get into the character. Last time I was a knight and I got to go around and I could help people. So I felt like it was my duty to help people fight in the dungeon or do different quests. And I really liked that idea. So, hopefully everyone has a good time. Plan to be here for a long time. Also, don't be upset if, like I said, in 20 minutes you're dead and you're out of the game, because that's just the way it could happen in this game. So, hopefully you all enjoy it. I know I'm going to have a blast. Thanks, guys. And again, this video hopefully was cut pretty short. I went as fast as I could. I did a broad overview of the game, so if you have any questions, of course, we're going to go over it on Sunday. So thanks again.